Okay, Reddit, I need to vent. Or maybe I need validation. I honestly don't even know anymore. Everything is just exploding. My life, my marriage, everything I thought I had built. And frankly, it feels incredibly unfair. I was trying to make things better for everyone, and now I'm the villain? This isn't how it was supposed to go down. This is an injustice on a scale I never imagined possible. Let's start from the beginning. My husband, Leo. We've been married for 7 years. A lifetime in the dreary suburbia we inhabit. When we met, he was this incredibly earnest, solid guy. Dependable, hardworking, always talking about providing a stable foundation. He was good-looking enough with a quiet strength that back then I mistook for depth. And I bought into it, you know? I saw him as the rock, the one who would build the comfortable, predictable life while I added the sparkle, the sophistication, the joy. I'm Amelia, by the way. And I bring a lot of joy. I just expected a certain level of reciprocation, a certain effort from him that always seemed to fall short. I expected to be adored, to be the center of his universe, not just a line item in his future planning spreadsheet. But somewhere between the vows and the mortgage payments on this oversized house, that initial spark died. Or rather, it flickered out on his end. He became consumed by responsibility, by climbing the ladder at his engineering firm, by the mundane grind of his utterly unglamorous job. Our sprawling 4-bedroom house in the affluent suburbs, meant to be my sanctuary, my canvas for domestic perfection, became a monument to his absence. He was present just enough to sign checks, meticulously organize utility bills, and occasionally fix a leaky faucet with a grimace, but never enough to truly see me, to appreciate the effort I put into maintaining our image, into simply existing as a woman of my caliber. Leo's career is fine. He's an engineer specialized in some sort of obscure network infrastructure. Honestly, it sounds like glorified IT support. He works long hours, constantly talks about deadlines and client demands and server migrations. It's an endless, mind-numbing drone. He's always at the office, putting in extra time, saying it's all for us, for our future, for making sure we're secure. Secure. That word became a prison. Secure meant boring. Secure meant evenings spent alone while he was hunched over CD drawings and complex algorithms that seemed to drain his very soul. Secure meant holidays that were sensible instead of luxurious. A cabin in the mountains instead of a private villa in Tuscany, because we need to build our nest egg, Amelia. Secure meant a sex life that dwindled into a predictable once-a-week chore, if that. And even then, it felt more like an obligation for him than an act of passion. I used to try. Truly I did. I'd light candles, put on jazz music, cook elaborate meals he probably barely tasted. I'd buy new lingerie, expensive silk pieces that felt wasted on his tired eyes. I'd plan weekend getaways to charming bed and breakfasts, hoping to rekindle something. But he'd be too tired, too stressed, too absorbed in his technical manuals or some online forum about advanced circuit boards. He'd come home, eyes glazed over, smelling faintly of solder and cheap coffee, sometimes with that vague industrial scent of the server room clinging to his clothes. "Long day, Amelia," he'd sigh, collapsing onto the sofa, barely acknowledging my presence. His face already turned to the evening news or some documentary about bridge construction. I felt like a beautifully decorated piece of furniture in a house he rarely occupied. A silent observer to his slow, methodical fading. A trophy wife, perhaps, but a very, very lonely one. The kind that slowly begins to collect dust. My friends Claire and Simone saw it too. They're both in similar, if not identical situations, though their husbands have different, equally mundane professions. Clara's husband, Michael, is a financial analyst, another numbers drone. Simone's ex-husbands, well, they were just ex-husbands. Men get comfortable, Clara would say, swirling her wine, her eyes narrowed with a shared knowing. They stop chasing once they've caught you. They forget you're a person with needs beyond their paycheck or their perfectly ironed shirt. Simone, who's been divorced twice and navigated the treacherous waters of alimony and child custody, would offer, her voice laced with cynical wisdom, "Honey, if he's not giving you what you need, someone else will. It's the law of nature. You can't let yourself shrivel up and die just because he decided to become a hermit." And I'd scoff, pretending it was just a joke, a dramatic exaggeration. But a little seed of possibility had been planted. A tiny, undeniable truth. The truth is, I'm a woman who thrives on attention, on admiration. It's my oxygen. I put immense effort into my appearance, my hobbies, my social life. I spend hours at the gym, at the salon, carefully selecting my outfits, cultivating beauty and charm. I read art history books, participate in book clubs, volunteer for charity events that boost my profile. It's exhausting maintaining this level of effortless grace. And for what? To come home to a man whose primary interaction with me was a tired nod and a grunt about his latest coding project? It wasn't just unfulfilling. It felt like a cosmic insult. I deserved to be cherished, pursued, desired, to have my brilliance reflected back at me, not to be dimmed by his perpetual exhaustion. That's when I met David. He's an artist, a sculptor actually, which is just so different from Leo's predictable engineering world. He was a breath of fresh air, a burst of color in my beige existence. We met at an art gallery opening, an event Leo encouraged me to attend alone, because he had another late night at the office. Of course. "Go on, honey," he'd said, barely looking up from his laptop. "Enjoy yourself. It's good for you to get out." David was all passion, all intensity, eyes that devoured you, a laugh that was genuinely infectious, echoing through the cavernous gallery space. He spoke about art, about life, about feeling, about emotion and beauty and the human experience, not about deliverables and profit margins and server uptime. He was everything Leo had ceased to be. Our conversations were electric, crackling with an energy I hadn't felt in years. He saw me, truly saw me. He complimented my dress, the way my hair framed my face, the sparkle in my eyes when I spoke about my dreams. Dreams Leo had long since classified under non-essential spending in our nebulous future budget. David understood the subtle nuances of my soul, the vibrancy I brought to every room, the effort I put into simply existing. He made me feel alive, captivating, like the Amelia I was always meant to be. Not the Amelia who just waited patiently for her husband to return from his metaphorical cave. The affair, if you want to call it that, started subtly, a slow burn of shared glances that lingered a moment too long, lingering touches on my arm, texts that bled from professional to intensely personal, each one a tiny transgression that felt exhilarating. We'd meet for coffee that turned into hours of conversation, lunches that stretched into late afternoons, filled with laughter and a profound sense of connection. He lived in a loft downtown, filled with his creations, raw and beautiful and alive, sculpted figures emerging from clay, canvases bursting with color, the scent of turpentine and creativity filling the air. It was a stark contrast to my perfectly curated but emotionally sterile suburban home, where the only scent was sometimes dust and Leo's lukewarm coffee. I knew it was wrong in the traditional sense, but what was the alternative? Wither away, become another resentful suburban housewife, drowning in unfulfilled potential, a ghost in my own perfect house? I was just trying to survive, to find a lifeline. Leo was so consumed by his work, so emotionally absent, that he left a gaping hole in my life, a void I was simply trying to fill. I wasn't filling it, he created it. It was his fault. I was just reacting to his neglect, to his chosen oblivion. It was self-preservation, honestly, a desperate act to reclaim my own sanity and happiness. And I was so good at hiding it. David and I were meticulous. We had code words for texts, elaborate alibis for our meetings. When I was with him, I felt vibrant, desirable, a woman reborn. When I came home to Leo, I would put on my tired wife facade, sometimes even adding a performative sigh as I walked through the door. I'd complain about my day, about small inconveniences, about the endless cycle of suburban life, channeling all my energy into being a long-suffering spouse who was just trying to cope with his perpetual absence. I was convinced he suspected nothing. He was too dense, too absorbed in his little world of numbers and circuits. He was such a beta. He just plodded along oblivious, his eyes always glued to his work or the sports news, never truly on me. I'd occasionally test the waters just to be sure, to see if a flicker of suspicion, a spark of jealousy existed within him. "You're home late again, Leo? Everything okay at the office? Or are you, entertaining clients a little too enthusiastically?" I'd try to make my voice light, teasing, but with a subtle undertone of accusation, watching his face intently. He'd just sigh, run a hand through his already messy hair, looking genuinely pained. "Amelia, please. It's the new server migration. We're on a tight schedule. You know how important this is. It's a huge project, could mean a big bonus for us, finally get that new kitchen you want." He'd look genuinely bewildered, almost wounded by my insinuation, and I'd pat myself on the back for my masterful acting, for how completely he bought into my feigned suspicion. He was truly clueless. Utterly, predictably clueless. After about 6 months, the affair with David had settled into a comfortable, exhilarating routine. I was seeing him 3, sometimes 4 times a week. My life had a new vibrancy, a secret spring in my step that even Leo couldn't dampen. My phone was constantly buzzing with David's witty texts, planning our next stolen moments. But it also meant I was pulling back from Leo, unconsciously perhaps, but definitively. I stopped trying to engage him in conversation at dinner. I'd just scroll through social media or pretend to be engrossed in a magazine. I rarely initiated physical intimacy. If he tried, I'd feign a headache or stress, knowing he'd immediately back down, apologetic. My excuses for late nights out became more elaborate, more frequent. Girls' night, yoga retreat, volunteering for the museum gala committee, a new pottery class. He'd just nod, vaguely, almost dismissively, his eyes already on his technical journals. He never questioned, never probed, just accepted. It was both a relief and a profound disappointment. Where was the fight? Where was the man who once pursued me? The cracks started to show, but I dismissed them as Leo's natural dullness, or the petty jealousy of others. Our mutual friends, however, began to notice. Clara and Simone, of course, were in on my secret, cheering me on, celebrating my newfound glow. "You look amazing, Amelia," Clara would gush. "Finally getting what you deserve." But others, like Sarah, Leo's colleague's wife, who I used to have coffee with every few weeks, she'd look at me with a strange, discerning gaze, a little too thoughtfully. "You seem different, Amelia," she'd say, her eyes lingering. "More alive. Is everything all right with Leo? He seems a bit preoccupied lately." I just offer a vague, pitying smile, shaking my head slightly. "Oh, you know Leo. Always working. But I'm finding ways to fill my time, to focus on myself." I'd leave it at that, implying I was simply thriving despite his neglect, not because of a whole other man. Sarah's expression would remain unreadable, which frankly annoyed me. She was clearly judging me, probably because she was jealous of my newfound happiness. My mother even noticed. She called me one afternoon, her voice laced with concern. "Amelia, dear, Leo sounded a bit distant when I spoke to him the other day. And you seem... well, you're never home anymore. Is everything all right with you too? You know marriage takes work." I scoffed. "Mom, he's always distant. He's an engineer, not a poet. And yes, I have a life outside of watching him fall asleep on the couch with a tech manual. I'm busy. I'm happy." Her silence on the other end of the line was deafening, a judgment more cutting than any spoken word. But what did she know? She'd been in a stable but passionless marriage for 40 years, sacrificing her own desires for family harmony. She wouldn't understand my need for passion, for a life lived fully. I was getting tired of the constant charade, though. Tired of pretending with Leo. Tired of his quiet, unassuming presence that seemed to absorb all the joy from the room. He just existed. A beige shadow in my vibrant, colorful life. The contempt for him simmered, then boiled over. I started leaving subtle digs. Passive-aggressive remarks designed to sting. Did you even notice I changed the curtains, Leo? Or are your eyes permanently glued to that screen, even when you're home? He'd blink, apologize, genuinely bewildered. Oh, they look great, honey. Sorry, I must have missed it. Just so focused on this presentation for Friday. It was pathetic. He didn't even care enough to notice the effort I put into our shared living space, let alone me. My conversations with David grew bolder, fueled by my escalating frustration with Leo. I shared every perceived slight, every sign of Leo's dullness, painting a picture of a man utterly undeserving of my attention. My text to David became an unfiltered stream of consciousness. One Tuesday I was particularly annoyed. Leo had promised to fix a leaky faucet in the guest bathroom for weeks, and it was still dripping, a constant, irritating plink plink plink. A maddening reminder of his inadequacy. David had offered to send his handyman over, but I'd said no because Leo needs to step up and be a husband, not just a paycheck. He hadn't, so I was fuming. I sent David a flurry of texts. He's so useless. Can you believe he still hasn't fixed the faucet? I swear he's completely emasculated himself. I need a man, not a broken appliance. And later, sometimes I just want to scream. How did I end up with such a pathetic excuse for a husband? You're literally everything he isn't. Alive. Passionate. A man. I was letting off steam. It was harmless. David understood. He always did. That evening I got home still stewing, expecting Leo to be home late as usual. The house was quiet. Too quiet. My purse clattered as I dropped it on the hall table. I walked into the living room and there he was, sitting on my pristine white sofa, staring at the wall, bathed in the dim glow of the evening light filtering through the blinds. The air in the room was thick, heavy, suffocating. He didn't look up as I entered. Leo? What are you doing home so early? Everything all right? My voice was sharper than I intended, laced with an irritation I couldn't fully mask. He slowly turned his head. His eyes were red-rimmed, but there were no tears. Only a chilling emptiness. And something else, something cold and resolute that I'd never seen before. A hard glint I utterly failed to recognize. He held his phone in his hand. My stomach dropped, a cold dread washing over me. I know, Amelia, he said, his voice flat, devoid of its usual gentle inflection, devoid of any warmth. Each syllable was carefully weighted. I know everything. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. My mind raced, trying to find an escape route, a logical explanation for this impossible scenario. How? How did he know? Had David said something? Had one of my friends betrayed me? No, that was impossible. They were on my side. No, what, Leo? I tried to sound confused, innocent, bewildered, but my voice wavered, a telltale tremble betraying my composure. What are you talking about? Are you feeling okay? He slowly raised the phone. On the screen was a screenshot. My text message. The one to David about him being useless and emasculated. The words jumped out, mocking me. And beneath it, a photo. A photo of David and me laughing too close, hand in hand, leaving his apartment building just last week. The clarity of the image, the undeniable intimacy it conveyed, hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. I've known for 6 months, Amelia, he said, his voice still terrifyingly calm, each word a precise cut. Not the full details, not who, not the extent, but I knew. I knew you were seeing someone. I knew something was wrong. You changed. The way you looked at me, the way you avoided my touch, The way you suddenly had a new sparkle that wasn't for me. But I hoped it was just a phase. I hoped you'd come back. I hoped I could fix it by working harder, by providing more, by being the stable foundation you supposedly wanted." He paused, and his eyes, so often soft, now held a glint of something I could only describe as quiet fury, a deep, silent rage that was far more terrifying than any shout. 6 months. 6 months of me working myself to the bone, putting in triple overtime, sacrificing my health, trying to be enough, trying to earn that promotion you always said I needed, trying to save for that vacation you wanted, trying to be the man I thought you married while you were doing this. He gestured vaguely at the phone, at the photo, at my very being. While you were calling me pathetic to someone else. To your lover. I felt a surge of indignation, hot and righteous, cutting through the initial panic. How dare he? How dare he make me the villain? Leo, it's not what you think. It was a mistake. A moment of weakness. You were never here. You were always at the office, always too busy for me. I felt neglected. Abandoned. I thought you were cheating on me. I was trying to cope, trying to feel something, anything, other than that crushing loneliness you left me with. The words tumbled out, desperate, self-righteous, a torrent of carefully rehearsed justifications. My tears started, real ones this time, hot and furious, not for him, but for my ruined narrative, for the utter injustice of being caught, of having my carefully constructed reality shattered. He stared at me, unblinking, his face a mask of cold resolve. Neglected? I was providing. I was building. I was working to create the life you kept demanding, the comfort and security you claimed to value above all else. You saw my effort as absence, my dedication as disinterest. You needed attention, Amelia. You had my entire life, my entire focus poured into your perceived needs. You called it a mistake, but you actively chose it, chose him every single day for half a year, while you systematically poisoned my perception to your friends and yourself. You called me pathetic? You were the one hiding in the shadows, the one with no integrity. His voice grew colder, if that was possible, each syllable a precise cut. I sacrificed years. My time, my energy, my very well-being, for what? To be ridiculed, doubted, and cheated on by the very person I was working for? The person I loved. His eyes, devoid of any flicker of the gentle Leo the first once knew, bored into mine. "I've filed the papers, Amelia. They're already being processed. I wanted to give you this decency of knowing before they arrived, before you heard it from a lawyer." He motioned to a thick manila envelope on the pristine coffee table, its stark white contrasting sharply with the warm tones of my carefully chosen decor. "I've been gathering everything. The proof. The texts. Your credit card statements, meticulously cross-referenced with the dates and times matching your yoga classes and gala events at locations nowhere near the yoga studio or the museum. The surveillance footage from David's building, professional, high quality. My own work logs, my own phone records proving my fidelity, my absolute unswerving dedication. Every complaint you ever made, every casual insult, every cutting remark I'd made about his masculinity or his earning potential, every word you spoke about me behind my back. It has all been noted, documented, and presented." My jaw dropped. This wasn't Leo. This wasn't my meek, unassuming husband, the beta I had so easily dismissed. This was a strategist, a meticulous observer, a cold, calculating force. He had been quietly collecting evidence, piece by agonizing piece, while I was living in my self-serving fantasy, convinced of my untouchability. He had known, and he had waited, letting me dig my own grave deeper and deeper. The betrayal wasn't just mine. It was his, for his cruel patience, his silent demolition of my entire life. He had weaponized my own words, my own actions against me. It was brilliant, and absolutely despicable. "This isn't fair," I shrieked, the tears now flowing freely, hot and angry, blurring my vision. My voice cracked with outrage. "You can't just do this. After everything I've sacrificed." After everything I've put up with in this emotionally barren marriage, I was just trying to be happy. You don't get to just ruin my life because of one mistake. One little slip. He picked up a small duffel bag from beside the sofa, surprisingly packed. One mistake, Amelia? You call 6 months of calculated deception, emotional abandonment, and public mockery of your husband a mistake? No, this isn't a mistake. This is the consequence of your choices. And the consequence is I'm leaving. And I'm taking everything I'm legally entitled to. And I assure you, Amelia, I am entitled to quite a lot. His gaze was unwavering, unflinching. He walked out, and the click of the front door closing echoed in the sudden vast, overwhelming silence of the house. He didn't slam it. He didn't yell. He didn't even look back. He just left, calmly, definitively, leaving me utterly alone amidst the ruins of my self-made kingdom. After he left, a strange, suffocating panic set in. I called David. He answered, but his voice was strained, laced with a fear I instantly recognized as self-preservation. Amelia, I don't think we can see each other anymore. My wife, she found out. Leo sent her everything. My whole life is falling apart. I can't risk my gallery, my reputation. He hung up before I could say anything, before I could beg, before I could unleash my fury. My perfect escape, my shining knight, had vanished in an instant, leaving me stranded. I tried to call Claire and Simone. Clara answered, her voice tight, a hint of disgust I hadn't expected. Amelia, I'm so sorry, but Leo actually sent me screenshots of your texts about him. The things you said. About him being emasculated. Useless. I can't believe it. I really can't. I always thought you were just venting. She paused then, and he sent pictures. I can't be associated with this, Amelia. I have my own marriage. She hung up. Simone wouldn't even answer my calls or texts. My support system, my carefully cultivated circle of validation, gone. They had chosen his quiet integrity over my dramatic self-pity. The divorce was brutal. A public dissection of my every perceived flaw. He laid out every piece of evidence, every meticulously recorded slight, every damning text, every single one of my self-justifying complaints about him, painting me as the manipulative, ungrateful, and unfaithful spouse. The judge looked at me with open disapproval, a silent condemnation that felt like a brand. My lawyer, a different one this time because Brenda had dropped me after seeing the mountain of evidence, just shook her head, her face grim. He's been planning this, hasn't he? For months. He's got you, Amelia. Completely. It wasn't fair. He was supposed to be the weak one, the beta, the man I could walk all over. I lost almost everything. The house, the majority of the savings, even my car, which was technically paid for by him. I was left with a pittance, a fraction of what I thought I deserved, and the crushing weight of public humiliation. Rumors spread like wildfire through our social circles. David's wife made sure of it, ensuring my name was dragged through every possible bit of mud. Everyone knew. My reputation, meticulously built, was in tatters. And now here I am, in a tiny rented apartment, a far cry from the spacious home I meticulously decorated, trying to make ends meet for the first time in my adult life. He's thriving, I hear. Got that big promotion and then some. His career is skyrocketing, and he's apparently the office hero. The wronged husband who handled a terrible situation with grace and dignity. He sold the house, moved into a chic downtown condo, and is apparently dating someone new. A quiet, sensible woman, probably another beta he can walk all over. But I'm sure he'll eventually disappoint her too, because men like Leo, they just can't truly fulfill a woman's needs. It's not fair. I was just trying to be happy. I was the victim of his neglect, his emotional absence. I was just reacting, trying to find my own joy, my own fulfillment. And he, the quiet, unassuming man, turned into this cold, calculating monster who systematically dismantled my life, my reputation, my entire future. I didn't deserve this. I really didn't. This entire situation is just unjust. And I'm left here alone, wondering how the world could be so cruel to someone who only ever wanted what was best. For myself, of course.